Good evening. Our top stories tonight: the Carolina Panthers, a team that went 6-6 under interim head coach Steve Wilkes, almost made the playoffs, but ultimately missed out because of pesky Tom Brady. But now they've decided to go in another direction. From Matt Rule to Steve Wilkes to Frank Reich, the Carolina Panthers, they're starting over. They are starting fresh with a new head coach and likely a new quarterback, because if there's anything that we've learned from Frank Reich's time in Indianapolis is he's going to want to figure out who his quarterback is. And we know David Tepper wants a quarterback. We know he wanted an offensive mastermind. So what do the Carolina Panthers look like in 2023? We've got all that and much, much more on Player Profiler Today. And so, first and foremost, the cap space with the Carolina Panthers is not too great at the moment. Carolina Panthers, negative $7.9 million in cap space. Yeah, they not the best, but not the worst. They are sixth worst in the NFC and 12th worst in the NFL. There are actually 14 teams that currently are over the salary cap right now. So, could be worse if you're the Panthers. There's only two teams over the cap that are better than you. And there's ways to fix this. Most likely, they cut center Pat Elflein. He started the season, which I don't know why he was starting over Bradley Bozeman, but then he ended up getting benched and now should be cut $4.2 million on the cap this year, which is interesting because Bozeman's cap hit last year on the one-year deal was $2.8 million. So you sign Bozeman, long-term deal. You nail down your center. You get rid of Pat Elflein, who was just a bad signing from when it happened. I still can't believe that 2 years ago, I believe it was 2 years ago, maybe it was last year. But anyways, the Panthers, their big free agent signings on the offensive line, which everyone knew they needed, were Cam Irving and Pat Elflein. And neither of them were starting for the Panthers by the season rolled around. So that's one cut that they're going to make. That'll save $4.2 million. They're going to cut backup inside linebacker Damian Wilson and save $3.9 million. And really, Damian Wilson, he was their fourth linebacker. That's too much money for a cash-strapped team to be paying a second string, but fourth overall linebacker. And then there's some other moves that they can make. They can save $13 million by cutting Shaq Thompson, but that's probably not going to happen. Be an $11 million dead cap, and he's the leader of the defense. They could save $3.9 million for cutting Frankie Louvu, but he's emerged as really a force from the linebacker position as a pass rusher. Marquise Haynes saved $3 million by cutting him, but that's your edge rusher 3, only $3 million. That's a good deal. So they're not going to cut him, and then they could cut Xavier Woods, $2.6 million they would save, but they'd also cost $3.3 million in dead money. So most of the time, these contracts, you're not going to move on from them. What you can do, though, is you can extend Brian Burns, save $11.9 million by extending Brian Burns, which is something that we know the Carolina Panthers will do. They could, of course, trade him. If they trade Brian Burns, they'll save about $16 million against the cap, but they had the chance to trade Brian Burns last year for 2 first-round picks and turned it down. Brian Burns going to get paid this offseason. He's going to be a long-term fixture of the Carolina Panthers. So that helps with just the necessary moves, with the contract extension for Brian Burns, cutting Pat Elflein and Damian Wilson. That now puts them at positive $12.1 million. So that's a big step for the Carolina Panthers. That's only 14th in the NFL. It's a big turnaround. And then they can save some more money with DJ Moore's contract. They can restructure up to $12 million. Taylor Moton, their right tackle, restructure up to $11 million. And their right guard, Austin Corbett, restructure to almost $6 million. So there are moves that the Carolina Panthers can make outside of these obvious ones. They're in good shape with this rebuild. They pick 9th overall, and if you've listened to the show before, you know I think that the Panthers are going to trade up. Because Frank Reich really struggled with the Colts. He was a winning coach, but he struggled with finding the QB. he inherited, he took over the job with Andrew Luck and thought, you know what, I am set. I am good to go. I got Andrew Luck. Life is easy. I am the coach of Andrew Luck. He's going to carry me to Super Bowls. We are good. Then he retires. Then it's Jacoby Brissett, and then it's Phillip Rivers, and then it's Carson Wentz, and then it's Matt Ryan and Sam Ellinger. So Frank Reich never had stability on his offense. He never got to grow his offense with his quarterback because there was never one that stuck around long enough for that opportunity. And we saw what he did with the Philadelphia Eagles. He very much helped Carson Wentz succeed with the Eagles. Thought he could fix Carson Wentz, but no, Carson Wentz is just broken. And Howie Roseman taking some shots ahead of the Super Bowl at Carson Wentz, essentially calling him mentally weak, saying that we're always going to be bringing in quarterbacks. We're always going to be bringing in depth. And if you're worried about depth, then you're not the guy at quarterback. But Frank Reich thought he could rebuild Carson Wentz. He failed. So now I can't see him taking that risk again on a veteran quarterback. Not that the Panthers want to. The Panthers have been down the veteran route too. They had Cam Newton, they had Sam Darnold, they had Baker Mayfield, not veteran, but PJ Walker. That was also the downfall of the Matt Rule organization, is they couldn't get the quarterback position right. Teddy Bridgewater, all sorts have been quarterback for the Carolina Panthers over the past couple of years, and it hasn't worked at all. David Tepper knows this, and that's why David Tepper wanted to hire an offensive coach. We knew that the Panthers from day one were looking for an offensive head coach because David Tepper is a younger, more analytically based owner who realizes that points win in the NFL, and points, offense, scoring, it all puts butts in seats, and this is a business first and foremost. So it was no surprise when they hired an offensive coach. I was relieved that they didn't just try and hire the next young thing on offense, the next Sean McVay, the next Kyle Shanahan. I was impressed that the Panthers actually went for the veteran, went with Frank Reich, and decided, hey, this guy, he did not get a fair shake with the Colts. He should still be the Colts coach right now. Why not let him do it for us? Let him rebuild our franchise. We've got building blocks here. So if we can get the quarterback right, Frank Reich and QB1 can grow together. Now, who is that quarterback going to be? Because I've said they're going to trade up. And there are really 3 top quarterbacks worth trading up for. There's the conversation to be had about Anthony Richardson and the tantalizing talent, but Anthony Richardson's not a quarterback you trade up for. That will cost you your job. Will Levis, that also might cost you your job trading up for him. If you're the Carolina Panthers, because I don't know if he'll be ready to start right away. He might need to learn behind Sam Darnold. I don't know. Whoever the Panthers end up choosing at quarterback, I think they'll give Frank Reich plenty of time to figure it out. So that's not the worry. But for other teams, you're not trading up for Anthony Richardson is the end of the story. You might trade up for Will Levis, but I think the Colts, that's their guy. You might trade up for Bryce Young, but I think that's the Texans guy. But I could see CJ Stroud as a Carolina Panther. He is accurate. He is more mobile than I thought he was. I did not give him credit for the mobility. We saw it against Georgia. He can make some plays outside of the pocket, something I never gave him credit for. Now, that's not his forte, but he's more than just the Jared Goff collapse when everything around him falls apart. So if I had to predict right now, it would be the Colts trading up to 1 from the Chicago Bears and landing Will Levis. It would be the Texans at 2, selecting Bryce Young. And then it would be the Panthers moving up to probably 5, maybe 4, with the Chicago Bears trading back again, maybe 3. But I think the Panthers are going to move up and be that third team to take a quarterback in the top 5, selecting CJ Stroud. And once that happens, wheels are up for DJ Moore. And I know we say this all the time, that it's the best quarterback DJ Moore's ever played with, but it really is. It really is. If they end up with CJ Stroud, if they end up with Bryce Young too, if they end up with Will Levis, he could end up being the best quarterback that DJ Moore has ever played with. And I know you're thinking, Cam Newton, this is disrespectful. It was not prime Cam Newton by the time DJ Moore got there. The skills had started to deteriorate after that first season. The first season, it was still kind of there, but really fell off. But Will Levis is a Cam Newton with less athleticism, probably a little bit less arm strength, but they have that prototype size. They can move in the pocket. They are big, strong men, a load to take down. We've seen comparisons of Will Levis to Josh Allen, but Josh Allen was often compared to Cam Newton entering the draft, just for the athleticism, the raw talent with the unrefined arm. And we saw that Josh Allen refined that arm, but Cam Newton stands to the fact that even if Will Levis does not fix his arm, he can still have success in the NFL. He's athletic enough that there are ways to win. But regardless of what the Panthers do, I truly believe that they will be selecting a quarterback in the first round of the draft and doing so by trading up. But what else do they need outside of quarterback? And there's a chance that Sam Darnold comes back, because Sam Darnold, he's a free agent. But are you going to start the rookie from day one? Are you going to give him no veteran leadership, no quarterback to help bring him along in the NFL? Because right now, it's Matt Corral and Jacob Eason as the quarterbacks on the Panthers roster. So you got to have somebody to help this rookie along. It could end up being Sam Darnold. By all reports, they like him in the building and think that he could impart some wisdom on whoever the next QB is while serving as a short-term bridge. I don't know. Maybe they bring in a Marcus Mariota, Mitchell Trubisky. Regardless, they'll have someone. They need a quarterback. They need a running back, if we're being honest. Because Chuba Hubbard, I like Chuba Hubbard. I think he should have got more carries, but he is not a bell cow. He is a satellite back plus, a change of pace back plus. But Dante Foreman, he's a free agent. I'm sure he'll be back on a not so expensive deal, or maybe they target someone else. Maybe Frank Reich's scheme doesn't fit Dante Foreman, whatever that means. They also need a wide receiver 2-3 to bump Shi Smith out of the starting lineup, bump him down to wide receiver 4. Then you get DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall, and then wide receiver 2-3 that steps in, gets Shi Smith to the bench, and Laviska Shenault to wide receiver 5 as that kind of gadget player. They only need a center on the offensive line. The right tackle set, the left tackle set, left guard Brady Christensen. He had an okay year in his transition to left guard. He'll continue to improve, though. And then right guard set too with Austin Corbett, who they paid big money to come over from the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. So if you bring back Bradley Bozeman, this offensive line is set. Really on offense, the only things you need are to figure out the quarterback position, a running back of the caliber of Dante Foreman. You can just bring him back if you want. And then a wide receiver, but not a top end wide receiver. A wide receiver in the Terrace Marshall ability area. And then on defense, what do we need? We need some help at the defense tackle because Matt Ioannidis, he is a free agent, only signed a one-year deal with lots of void years. That made no sense looking back at it. Edge, you're pretty fine. You know, if they choose to cut Marquise Haynes, that'll cause some issues. They'll need an edge 3, but they're looking pretty good there. Linebacker, they're currently set with Shaq Thompson. They're fine. Really, on defense, they need a defensive tackle with Matt Ioannidis as a free agent. And then their slot cornerback / safety, Miles Hartsfield. He's a free agent too. And what Hartsfield does is allowed Jeremy Chinn's versatility to shine. Because Jeremy Chinn, he's a safety, moves up, plays a lot of linebacker, played a lot in the slot this year too, which is where Miles Hartfield plays. So he rotates back to safety. It allows them to mix and match. That was part of why the Panthers defense was so effective. So I could see them bringing him back, but those are the only two positions on defense that actually need addressing. This is a team that is well set up. This is a team that could hit the ground running and compete. But I mean, obviously they could compete. They competed this year even. My cat would get out of the way so I could see my screen to share this with you so you can take a look at this Panthers starting offense. Oh, there we go. There we go. This is what we've got. This is what we are working with for 2023 in Carolina. Sam Darnold / CJ Stroud / Matt Corral. And that would be a fine competition. You let Matt Corral compete with Sam Darnold or whatever veteran quarterback. Jacoby Brissett has some experience with Frank Reich, so maybe you go the Jacoby Brissett route. Maybe he starts because he and Frank Reich, they were together with the Indianapolis Colts. That'd be fine. Whoever it is, you need a veteran to help bring on new QB1 along. And Matt Corral, he can come along for the ride too. Maybe he ends up being a backup in the NFL. Maybe he develops into a starter for some other team. You figure out running back. Chuba Hubbard's fine enough. You got Raheem Blackshear, but you need an RB2-ish type. Someone to split the load with Chuba Hubbard and with Raheem Blackshear. It's not a massive priority. A Jamal Williams type would be great. They don't need to go out and spend the big bucks on a Tony Pollard who will be back, or a Josh Jacobs or a David Montgomery. Just stick with what got you there in Dante Foreman. Maybe someone a little bit more explosive, but you don't have to break the bank. You don't need Miles Sanders. You don't need David Montgomery. At wide receiver, you don't need anyone because all your starters are back. But I mean, come on, Shi Smith. They said last year that they wanted him to be their wide receiver 4. They were really hoping that Laviska Shenault could be their 3. They were hoping that with Robbie Anderson that it would work out and Terrace Marshall could be their wide receiver 3. But it didn't. They had to get rid of Robbie. Shi Smith becomes the wide receiver 3, and that's a problem. Tight end could be upgraded to really just playmakers on offense outside of DJ Moore would be a help, but this is a strong running team on the back of this dominant offensive line that really is going to help make this an easy transition for whichever quarterback they end up going with, as long as they figure out that center position. And that's not one that will be too expensive, especially if they bring back Bradley Bozeman, which I really hope they do, because this offensive line, they were just people movers. They weren't the most flashy offense, but it was fun to watch them just maul people, except when they mauled the Detroit Lions. But I don't want to talk about that, ruin my Christmas Eve. What we will talk about is this defense, though, which, as I said, there's not a lot of holes on the defense either. Shaq Thompson and Frankie Louvu, that is a wonderful duo up the middle. Shaq Thompson is more of the coverage player, and Frankie Louvu, he's more of a pass rusher hybrid linebacker, which is perfect for what the Panthers have done on defense in the past. I'm sure it will continue to be perfect with the Carolina Panthers under Ejiro Evero. I'm sure he'll find a way, that defensive mastermind, to use Frankie Louvu properly. Derek Brown remains at the nose tackle. You got Marquand McCall, the undrafted player out of Kentucky, backing him up. Maybe he takes over in more of a prominent role, lets Derek Brown kick out to 3 tech. They need something, though, because Bravion Roy, Marquand McCall, they need at least another player to rotate with McCall, and Bravion Roy, not the answer. And in the secondary, it's really just Hartsfield. Both safeties are back. They got Jeremy Chin. They got Xavier Woods. They got J.C. Horn. They got Dante Jackson. They got C.J. Henderson, Keith Taylor. They are set in the secondary as long as they can figure out this slot cornerback. And, you know, they could kick Henderson inside or Dante Jackson. That's not really where any of those guys thrive. Keith Taylor's a 6'4" cornerback, so that doesn't really make sense either. Now, you bring back Miles Hartsfield, you figure out a defensive tackle, and you're a scary defense once again for the Carolina Panthers. And if you can get a quarterback that can grow with Frank Reich, that can develop over years working together, you give Frank Reich a long leash and you get him a quarterback with the talent profile of Will Levis, of Bryce Young, of CJ Stroud. It doesn't matter. But if you get the Carolina Panthers their guy at quarterback this year, they're going to be a sneaky powerhouse in years to come.
Hey, you like that video? Be sure to subscribe and activate those alerts so you get notified as soon as new videos drop. And be sure to check out PlayerProfiler.com. We have all the tools for you to dominate every type of fantasy league. We have a draft kit, Dynasty Deluxe, data analysis, DFS Dominator, and don't forget the player rankings to rule them all.